Hi guys, I'm Yusuf and I'm Huzaifa. Welcome to Ask the Haksons episode 3. Since this video is quite long, we have the questions with the timestamps in the description. You can fast forward to the question you like an answer for. So the first question that we've taken up today is I want to learn this art. Any suggestions for beginners like me? I really love your work. How can I try doing this at home? Well, you must do this at home. That's the whole purpose of putting out these beautiful pictures, videos. It's for you to take that first step into DIY. But to make it even more easier for you, we have the 300 grams pack and the Haksons starter kit. And if you're a little more confident, we have the Haksons Galaxy kit. Each of these can be purchased. Once you get the product, you mix it in the correct ratio. That is step 1. And it's okay if it doesn't cure on the first time. It's okay that, you mix it and it doesn't work. But if you mix it perfectly, it will always cure. Use the correct ratio. Use the right pigments. You will get a variety of pigments in the starter kit and the Galaxy kit. Be sure to check the ratio written on the pack and use it accordingly. So once you've figured out the ratio and have mixed the product correctly, split it up into different cups and use some pigments. With the Galaxy kit and the starter kit, of course, you get a variety of pigments that you can try. Refer to episode 1 and episode 2 for how to mix resin and hardener and the different types of pigments. We've spoken in detail about that there, and then you just start pouring. What you can do is go through our Instagram and we have a variety of tutorials. Pick up one tutorial and go in depth with that and understand what you need to do. We have tutorials to make coasters, trays, watches, magnets, a simple coat to upcycle your furniture, decoupage. The list goes on. We have about more than 30 tutorials on the Instagram profile and they are mentioned in detail on the blog. Go through them and I'm sure you'll be able to do it at home. Once you start doing it, you'll immediately get better and better. The more you do, the more practice you get, the better you will get. And in no time, you'll be able to create products that you can eventually sell or make professionally. The next question is, by the time my resin cures, all the cells of my lacing are gone. Which white color from your supplies provide the lacy effect? I really want to know how to keep my lacing cells intact. Well, lacing is not rocket science. Yeah, a lot of artists keep asking us that how do you get these cells? How do you get this lacing effect? Artists who have been working with resin for a while now know it's not that difficult. What we think over here is that it's 10% technique and 90% practice. What you need to understand is that resin is one medium in which we are mixing these different kinds of pigments. So one would be the opaque pigments, one would be the concentrated pigments, maybe the pearl powders. All these pigments have a different type of consistency or different type of composition. So what happens when you mix these different pigments in resin, that is the medium, and you pour them side by side, those different pigments interact with each other inside the resin, and that's what usually forms these cells. So a simple way of doing this is that when you mix your resin, you split it into two parts. One part, that will be 20% of your whole batch, will be for the white, for your lacing, and the rest of it, the blue color or whatever your base coat is. You take that resin and you coat your panel. Once you coat it, you set aside both the panel and the 20% of resin that you've set aside. You take this and you put it away for say anywhere from 45 minutes to maybe 1.5 hours to maybe 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Every artist has his own time and this only comes with practice. After setting it aside for 1.5 hours, you can take the white resin, just apply small streaks over your panel and then use a heat gun to achieve that lacing effect. But just one thing that you need to make sure is that the resin that you set aside, it needs to be in small quantities. It cannot be a huge amount of resin, otherwise the resin will heat up. Now the next few questions are about river tables and how do we really bring a river table right from the demolded step to the final step. First question in that series is how to sand and polish the resin tables and what grits and other brief detailed video. Sanding steps, polishing and finishing steps. The value or the beauty of a river table is its finishing. All the effort that you're going to put in building a river table and all the expensive materials that you're going to use to build a river table, everything is defined by the finishing that you can give.
Yeah, all those fancy Instagram videos that you see where someone's pouring a bucket full of resin and casting a river table, well, that's just the first part of making a river table. The way you finish it later is the most important part.
And to start off with that, what you need is you need to have an understanding of the process. After you demold your piece, you need to level it out. You use a router or a grinder to level it out. For more details, you can go to our how to make a river table video. We won't dwell on that here. But the next step after grinding is sanding. Now, what does sanding really mean? So for sanding, you need the right equipment first. You can start with a random orbital sander. It can be any sander from any brand or any company. But the sandpaper that you use is really critical. And that's why we use the best sandpapers and we use some of the best equipment in the world to sand it. So once those grinder marks are on your table, you need a sander with 80 grit sandpaper to get rid of those marks. So very patiently you sand through the process. Those of you who've attended the river table workshop will understand this very clearly. Or those of you who've just done some amount of sanding will understand this. Or woodworking will also understand this. So get rid of your grinder marks using the 80 grit sandpaper. Or once you stop seeing the grinder marks and you can see new scratches, that's the time you need to move on from 80 grit to your next grit.
Yeah, we'll have a video soon in which we will go in detail into this.
Yeah, but just to give you a small brief, from the 80 grit you go to the 120 grit till the 80 grit marks are gone away. From the 120 grit you can go to 180 grit. That's when the marks go away. Now if you're using Rubio monocoat to polish the table, at 180 grit is when you need to polish. We'll come to that a little later, but just giving a small introduction to Rubio monocoat and Osmo here. After 180 grit, you can go again to 240 grit and further you can go up to 320 grit. Once you reach 320 grit, that's when you can use Osmo. The advantage of using Osmo is that you get a slightly higher gloss as compared to Rubio monocoat. But the advantage with Rubio monocoat is that it's slightly more durable. It's also a little more easier to use for a DIYer.
It's not slightly more durable, it's actually made for flooring applications, so it's pretty durable.
It's very durable. So we love Rubio monocoat and we love Osmo. Depending on the finish that we want to give the table, we choose what we want to do.
There's this complaint from everyone that once you coat resin or once you cast resin and that initial gloss, the natural gloss that resin has, how do you get it back if you sand it or if you cut it or if you use any kind of machine on it? Everyone keeps asking us, how do you get that back? Well, you need a lot of effort, but there are ways to get it back. There are two ways. One is that you can level your whole river table and you can say sand it to max 120 grit and you can pour a thin coat of ultra clear resin on it. Pour the coat on with care, keep a dust free environment, and after it cures, you'll have a high gloss finish again. Or what you can do is that you can sand it and as he said 80, 120, 180, 240, 320 grit, okay? But you don't stop over there. You go on all the way to 4000 grit. And by that what I mean is that after 320, you take it on to 400 grit, 500 grit, 800 grit. You sand with 1000 grit, then you do wet sanding with say 2000 grit, 3000 grit, 4000 grit. That depends on your paper if you need, but if you use these papers that are there over here behind, Abroron papers, Mica Abroron papers, these have worked the best till now. Use these papers and after 4000 grit, what you have to do is rubbing and polishing with a polisher and you will get the same gloss back again.
But the problem with this is that in India, we have a very dusty environment. And what happens is that when this dust settles onto your high gloss table or on your glossy resin and it slightly moves, it can scratch your surface. So in India, what we do is we don't really suggest a high gloss finish to anybody because we simply feel that the dead mat or that mat feel just is much more easier to be maintained, and also it is much more easier to repair. So one thing with resin tables and with the resin and wood finish is that it is infinitely repairable. So if your surface gets scratched, all you need to do is you sand it again, pour another coat, or you sand it again and polish it again. Or if for some reason something happens and you want to just redo your entire thing, you can just get rid of some of the resin and you can pour a new layer and you can change the color even. But that's the whole advantage of resin. The idea is that you're capturing a piece of nature, of real wood, into your living room or your house, and the beauty of that is being used for your decor. Don't worry about anything, guys. It's infinitely repairable. Of course it's a lot of effort, of course it's expensive, but it's worth it. How to polish the product after finishing? What type of polish should we use? We spoke a little bit about Rubio and Osmo in the previous question. We'll just give you some more details here.
So Rubio monocoat's really good and it's really durable on wood. But the only drawback is that it is a dead matte finish. I personally like it a lot. But a lot of us over here in India, we want a little bit of sheen. So what Osmo allows you to do is that it allows you to sand to 320 grit. And then you can apply multiple coats. So when you apply 2 or 3 coats, automatically you get a little bit of sheen. And so that finish is very good as well.
What I also love about Rubio is that it has that woody feel. So once you touch the river table with Rubio put on it, because it is at 180 grit and it's slightly less smoother than 320, it has this woody feel and it really brings out the character and the wood grains really well. But the advantage with Osmo, like he said, is the sheen, and you can do multiple coats of Osmo. With Rubio, you can only do one coat.
You can do another coat, but it's not going to really help in the durability.
Correct. The next question is how to protect resin from scratching.
So the thing is that resin is so glossy, right? It's such a high gloss finish. And what we don't notice is that there are always these dust particles on the surface. And when somebody puts their hand on them and moves their hand, these dust particles are trapped between your finger and the surface. And the moment you move your hand, it leaves this trail of scratch marks, right? And that's just caused by these tiny dust particles. So what I tell artists all the time is that your resin painting, what you can do is that you get these, you get different type of waxes. Something like yellow carnauba wax, or we have Meguiar's NXT wax. So what these do, these waxes, is that they give the surface some level of dust resistance and water resistance. So when you drop some water on it, it will run off. If you have some dust on it, you just blow it or you wipe it with a microfiber cloth and the dust is going to come off without scratching the surface. And even if it is scratching something, it's scratching mostly the wax and not the actual resin.
That's from the painting point of view. Now, when you look at a resin table point of view, since the resin table is not that high gloss and it's at 180 grit or at 320 grit, okay, so what happens is, and you've put a coat of Rubio or Osmo on it, so it already has very good scratch resistance. There is almost no surface in the world that can be said that it is completely scratch proof. Yeah, so what is the solution to this? The solution to this is for the river tables, it's very easy. You use Rubio and you use Rubio or Osmo, and you forget about it. Maybe after 2 to 3 years, if you feel that it's scratched enough, just contact the manufacturer.
Even if you think it's dull, you can just put another coat.
Yeah, just contact the manufacturer of the table, or just go, if you made it yourself, sand it and put a new layer of polish and it will be as good as new. Because this is hardwood and because it's a thick slab of wood, you can go on sanding it and refinishing it and it will keep on getting better and better. The next question, we get a lot of inquiries that I want to make this coffee table at home and what will be the basic tools that I will require to go ahead and do it.
For tools, what we tell a lot of people is that why don't you just start with a very basic tool? You just start with, say, a sander. because sanding is something that you will enjoy, and also it's easy to do, and a bit of that craftsmanship comes in, and you can give that time patiently, peacefully at home sanding. So you always suggest people you can get a simple sander, maybe a Bosch Jex 125. That's like a 5-inch sander. It doesn't cost more than 6,000 rupees. So we suggest people they can go with that, because the other tools that you require, say like a circular saw for cutting the table, and a router for leveling the table, these tools you cannot simply just start using from the go. They take some time, some practice to master, and there's that element of a bit of danger in it of you hurting yourself. So we tell people that instead of getting tools, you get yourself a good carpenter, find him in a store, hire him, or just convince him to work on that one table initially, right?
Yeah, and like he said, the important thing is to build that rapport with your carpenter. In India, we are very lucky that we have accessibility to easy labor. So, if you get a good carpenter and you've built up this rapport, over time he will also understand your requirements.
Yeah.
He will understand what you really want to do, and if you are able to instruct him, or if you are able to give out instructions clearly to him, he will do your job perfectly.
So one thing about the carpenter you should remember is that a simple question you ask the carpenter कि क्या आपने लकड़ी के साथ काम किया है? Do you work with wood or do you only work with plywood? So usually nowadays most of the carpenters, the new age guys, they only work with plywood and they will not be able to help you out. So you must ask that first initial question.
Yeah, if they're working with lakdi and they have good experience with hardwood, it will be really, really good. Obviously, you'll need some equipment you need some silicone, you'll need some resin, you'll need the wood, you'll need the pigments, all of that, but all of those do not need high investment. Go ahead and make that purchase for that sander if you're looking to start making a river table at home, or any sort of woodworking, or any sort of coffee table at home.
Yeah, we will have a coffee table kit soon, which will have ready slabs of wood, the amount of resin required in it, plus pigments, plus all the other things that you mentioned, silicone, plywood, whatever, the tape. So you all can look out for that as well.
That will be very simple for you. You'll just need to go ahead and follow the tutorial and complete the steps. It will have the mold, it will have everything for you. The next question that has come up is, which silicone do you use to seal the mold?
Yeah, so you can just use this stuff. It's very commonly available. Dowsil Neutral Plus Silicone Sealant. You must remember this one small thing, that it should be the Neutral Plus and not general purpose silicone, because that general purpose silicone is not good for us and it's banned in most European countries already.
So Neutral Plus white color silicone, there are different colors available. You have translucent, white, black, or grey, or any other color. Go for the white so that you can easily figure out your leaks in case of any. And make sure it's Neutral Plus and not general purpose. General purpose has fumes and it's harmful. Next question, which kind of resin is best suited to give a top coat on the geode table for a glass finish?
So you should just use the Ultra Clear for this, because it's UV resistant, it's not going to yellow easily, and it's crystal clear. So that's the best resin to coat your piece with. Use the Haksons Ultra Clear Grade 1 epoxy resin.
Yeah, but it's a great idea to do a clear coat on a geode, simply because, like he spoke earlier, if anything gets scratched on the surface, it's the top coat and not
just
the
a geode. On any art, any painting that a person makes, if you have the budget, and actually it doesn't cost too much to have a clear coat, you should always cast. It's a very good idea to always coat a resin painting with a clear coat, so that if it gets scratched, it's the top coat that's going to get scratched and not the actual painting.
The next question is a very interesting question. Why does mica gold powder settle down? I tried doing marble with gold streaks but failed. What's interesting with the mica powders, and some people find that difficult to work with, but if you understand the product, it's easier to work with it. So what's very important is that each of these mica powders, we have about 28 shades, they have varying densities. Some of them are heavier, some of them are lighter. Now this is because of the composition of the mica powder.
A good pointer for that is that in the dabbi, in the pack, you'll notice that some powders are only halfway filled and some are filled all the way up. That's only because these are filled by weight, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you were mentioning, the different densities.
So the densities, these densities are very important, and like we spoke about lacing and the interaction of different pigments in different resins, this gives us an added element to play with. Some pigments work beautifully in paintings, like the pack of 6, all of those work beautifully for paintings, but they might not work that well for river tables. Whereas the pack of 12 pigments, they work much better for a casting application as well as a painting application, but they are not as heavier as the other ones. The important bit here is that if you're using a lighter pigment and you want it to stay and you want it maybe not to settle down, a heavier pigment, what you need to do is use the pigments with the correct viscosity of the resin. So if the resin becomes thicker and then you mix it, you'll get more control with that pigment. A specific example with gold streaks is that if you let the resin become thicker and thicker, you'll literally be able to draw your name with that gold or with the resin. So understand the different densities, and with practice I won't be able to...
It's all about practice in this. Because you can see on Instagram, some people have this beautiful gold marble effect, but that comes with practice, guys. You need to practice.
Yeah, you need to go through our tagged profile and see the different applications of the mica powders, in what way they've been done. If you master these densities and viscosities, you will have a different... Yeah, you will have... You'll just open up a world of possibilities. The next question is how to make a silicone mold, a customized silicone mold. Now, silicone mold is really important, right? I mean, if you want to get that perfect cast with a glossy finish, you need a perfect silicone mold, and it's sometimes very difficult to procure. So we have the mold-sil silicone. So mold-sil silicone, it's a liquid silicone. It comes with a 1:10 ratio. Is it 1?
No, I think it's 100:1.
Okay. It's 100:1 between the catalyst and the silicone.
It's written on the pack.
It's written on the pack. You have to mix it really well. And technically, for best results, you need a vacuum chamber, but we don't have vacuum chamber. But we'll soon come up with a tutorial for this. The next question is how to maintain a river table. So the river tables that we manufacture might look really beautiful, and they're one of a kind. They're unique pieces. It's hardwood furniture. And you might be wondering that it might be really hard to maintain. But the reality is that because we use Osmo and Rubio, which are products tested out for flooring applications and other hardwood applications, you really don't need a lot of maintenance. You just need to keep it clean, okay? And make sure you use it. Make sure you use it every day. So because it's used every day and everything, you won't have any fungus. Even if you have some amount of fungus that has come up in the monsoon seasons, in some rare moist locations, fungus does come up. All you need to do is just wipe it off and it will go away. Use it daily and you won't face any issues. But remember, a river table has a 1-year cycle of seasoning into the place it is being used. For example, we make a table in Pune and it's shifted to Mumbai. The humidity changes. With that humidity, the expansion or the contraction in the wood will change. So for 1 year, we have to observe the table and see what is the movement. In some tables, the movement is up to ½ inch or 1 inch. Maintaining a river table is really easy. And
a simple step you can follow is that you can have a detailer spray on you, or anything like a water-based cleaner. So you spray that on, wipe it with a microfiber cloth. Whenever you feel the table is looking dull, you can just wipe it with this detailer spray and the table is going to look really nice.
The next question, and we may have got 50 similar questions in this way, is something like, come to Mumbai, where can you find details about next workshop? Are you going to conduct a workshop in Bangalore anytime soon? Do you plan to do a day or 2 workshops in Baroda? I just named a few, but we've got requests from all over the country and we would love to be in your city to do it. But at this moment, the experience that we can give with the river table workshop, it's a 2-day intense experience that we give, and it requires a lot of effort. It also requires our entire team, and at this moment...
And equipment.
At this moment, We're doing it only in Pune. Trust us, if you come down to Pune for the river table workshop, it's absolutely going to be worth it. We're obviously in the works to take it to different cities, but unless and until we're not confident of replicating the same experience that we bring to the table here, we will not do it in other cities. But at the same time, in other cities, we will be having smaller workshops where you can get a first-hand experience of what BohriAli is about. BohriAli is about DIY, and it's about doing more with the time we have, with the products we have, with the equipment and with our environment, and at the same time really getting that satisfaction of making something with our own hands. As far as how do you book your seats for the river table workshop, we have a simple system. All you need to do is we announce the workshops on Instagram. If you really want to be there for the workshop, you switch on your story notifications for Instagram. We announce the workshop generally 2 weeks in advance, and once you see the story, all you have to do is DM us. Once you DM us, you can confirm your seat over chat with our team. We also have a workshop kit. We understand that it's not easy for all of you to travel to Pune and for 2 days stay. So we have a workshop kit which Huzefa has developed. The river table workshop is also developed by him, and to compress everything into a 2-day intense workshop, pushing materials to the limit, pushing the participants to the limit. It's all about doing it the correct way. And it's all about following the correct process. With the river table workshop kit, you'll be able to start your journey with river tables. You'll just need help from the carpenter for about an hour or two, and you'll be able to recreate everything. We of course have a detailed tutorial or a detailed tutorial video that we give out with every river table kit. But we don't disclose the contents of the river table kit before you purchase the material and before you get delivery. Thank you for watching this episode of Ask the Haksons.
And if you want another episode coming out soon, leave a lot of comments below.
Make life difficult for us, and we'll come up with the next episode
Very soon.
And we're having a lot of tutorials coming up this month. Stay tuned to our Instagram and keep those comments on with all your questions. We're here to answer them.